Welcome to Raw Discourse, the most controversial podcast in the world.
All right, y'all. Welcome to Raw Discourse. We got Luke, Benny, TK. What's up, man? Y'all good?
Yes, sir. TQ. It's love, though.
You good, Luke?
Yes, man. I'm doing great.
You doing great, man?
Doing great.
Yeah, talking to the mic.
Trying to talk into the mic.
Your voice a little hoarse.
It is, yeah. Most people don't know I sound like this.
I know. It's all good, man. So, I'm just jumping to it. So, Luke, you run the car game, right?
You could say that.
You could say that?
You could say that. I don't want to say I'm the best, but we are.
Okay, y'all, you the best.
We the best.
We the So, let's take it from the top, Luke. So, where'd you grow up, man?
Man, believe it or not, I grew up in North Dallas.
North Dallas, born and raised.
North Dallas, my entire life.
Okay. What's your
Pretty much Richardson, though.
Pretty much Richardson?
Yeah.
And what was your family life like?
Man, a lot of people don't know that much about me. I was raised by my grandparents.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my mom and dad both kind of lived alternative lifestyles.
Yeah.
And I ended up with my grandparents.
Right.
So I grew up in Richardson my entire life. I went to elementary school there, junior high, high school, and then I went to Richland College.
Right. So your family, so you come from money, Luke?
Mm-mm.
Not at all?
So here's how I would put it, right? So my grandpa was an entrepreneur, and he started from nothing. He grew up in Kentucky, and he started in the oil business very young.
Right.
And he built a very successful oil company, like very successful, probably billionaire in today's market.
Oh, okay.
But they went bankrupt before I was born.
Oh, gotcha.
So my family was actually coming out of bankruptcy when I was born.
Oh, okay.
So I missed the money.
You missed the money.
I missed the money.
But I mean, they still had your grandparents still probably had the know-how of like how to make the money, and how to.
Honestly, man, my grandpa he passed away in 2012.
Okay.
But he never got back to where he was. But,
never got back to that level.
It was probably the only regret he probably had was losing the company.
Okay.
Because he went down with it when the business, because the oil industry's up and down. So
right.
In the 80s, he lost everything.
He lost everything.
And he had the opportunity to bail.
Okay.
But as a true captain would, he went down with his shit.
Oh, okay. So he
went down with the shit.
He stayed into
yeah.
Okay. And so would you say you were pretty like structured life?
Man, I was very fortunate to grow up in a loving environment.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you wouldn't say like y'all had a bunch of money or anything like that? Like
no, like middle class.
Middle class life?
Middle class life.
And then, so how were you in school?
Man, I was, up until high school, I was an amazing student.
Really?
Of course, the tax tests and all that stuff, commended performance all the way.
Okay. Yeah. And then what happened in high school?
Started fucking around, bro.
Like doing what?
I really did. I was more concerned with making money than I was maintaining grades.
Okay.
I had this mentality that I never wanted to work for anyone else.
Right.
So I started figuring that out pretty young.
Okay. And then from high school, how'd you start making money in high school?
Man, my first business was actually in the cell phone industry.
Okay.
So I was 12, 13 years old when I started my first business.
Okay.
So I was one of the first few people. When the iPhone first came out, it was exclusively for AT&T.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I was one of the first few people that could unlock and jailbreak them.
Okay, so you was more on the tech side.
I was on the tech side. I wasn't tech savvy.
Right.
But I knew that I could buy the phones for a certain price, unlock them, jailbreak them, and sell them overseas for a profit.
Okay.
But I was selling them locally too. I would have my grandma drive me to Starbucks to meet people to sell phones.
Right. And so you started making money doing that.
I was making really good money, and I just spent it all on dumb shit.
How much money do you think you made doing that?
Man, from like age 13 to 15, I probably made like 25,000.
25,000?
It's a lot of money for a kid at that age.
It's a lot of money for,
But I was really just spending money on dumb stuff, man. Like
okay.
I had Gucci sneakers at 13, like designer sunglasses. Just chubby, goofy white kid.
Just with designer shit.
Dripped in designer.
Just drip.
Yeah.
And so you lost all the money from that?
Of course.
Okay, and then...
My life has been a consistent period of enlightening experiences.
Right. So you lost all the money from that. And then, so now you're in high school. So you're about, 15 when that business stopped?
Mm-hmm.
So now...
the reason I stopped is because I had gotten cocky.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd have to go to the AT&T store to buy the phones.
Right.
And a branch manager recognized me. Damn, this chubby-ass white kid's in here all the time buying phones.
Yeah.
Why is he in here buying phones? And I just started blabbering at the mouth, and I gave myself away. And AT&T tried to sue me when I was 15 years old.
Really?
Yeah. Because I had broke the fine print.
You broke the fine print?
Yeah.
So what did that lawsuit, how did it come?
I didn't get sued.
You didn't get sued?
It was basically AT&T calling me and telling me that if I continued to do this, they were going to sue me.
Okay, so that's when you just stopped everything.
I just quit. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're
switched to Sprint.
They have really shitty service, by the way.
I'm just kidding.
We're not gonna get sponsored by them, but but yeah. So now you're 15, about 16 now. You're still in high school. So what? You're about sophomore, junior now, and now you're. So what are you thinking now? The business is done with the phones. What's the next play?
Man, honestly, bro, I was in a little bit of a lost place during that time.
Yeah,
just trying to figure stuff out, and I kind of had a lapse, I think, in my entrepreneurial journey around that time, and I really got back into it around age 18.
So what did you do until then?
Man, I was just trying to figure it out. I was still, in high school, just trying to be a good student. I was doing some other things that I wouldn't like to talk about on the side.
On the side?
You can assume what that was.
Yeah, just like narcotics and stuff like that.
Et cetera, et cetera. I think we all had a period doing that.
I mean, you're not going. I mean, you can say it on here, man. You're not going to get in trouble. Your wife.
You know. But
yeah. Nah, he can't say it on here. He good.
He good.
He good.
You're not going to let me.
I'm about to say, he's white, man. He's safe. Nobody's going to kick him.
They'll make an example out of anyone.
They'll make it. No, so back then you doing all this stuff on the side. So have you ever had a job?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
no, I've had jobs.
So when was your first job?
Man, my first technical job, I worked for Payway.
Oh, really?
Payway.
Yeah,
I was a cashier at Payway.
Really?
Yeah.
Just walk in.
It's your boy Lambo at the cashier stand.
At the cashier stand.
Nah, that was my first on paper job.
And how long you do that?
I was there a year. And from there I actually went and worked for an international shipping company, and I coordinated a lot of.
Wait a minute. So stop everything. So pretty much you went from Payway.
I've had a lot of random jobs.
A lot of
random jobs.
So you went from Payway to international shipping.
Yeah. So
and you're how old at this time?
I was 17 when I quit.
17, you quit Payway. So you went from international shipping. So
I was working at Payway, which is an Asian restaurant, and then I went to work for a Vietnamese shipping company.
Right.
So that was a personal connection that offered me the job. So basically 2-3 times a week, I would drive a 120-mile route around Dallas,
right,
picking up packages that would get shipped to Vietnam.
Right.
Which was very interesting, because it was a Vietnamese company and I was the only white person working there.
Right.
And so there was a very big, communication issue.
So you just applied through Indeed or something?
No, it was, like I said, it was a family connection.
Oh, family connection.
It was a family connection. That's how I landed that one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Taught me a lot, though.
It taught you a lot?
Taught me a lot.
And then, so you're doing all that. So how would you even communicate with everybody?
I really wouldn't. There were, the person that managed me spoke English, but almost all of the vendors that I would encounter they didn't speak English.
Right.
So we just had, our forms that we would fill out and monitor the cash that we picked up, and that's about it.
And what do you think the biggest thing you learned from that job was?
Monitor your money.
Right.
My manager was very diligent in monitoring their money.
Right.
And I think people these days are a little too loose with it.
A little bit too loose with it?
Too loose with it, man. People worry about making a bunch of money instead of keeping it.
Right.
So I think there's a big difference.
But do you think you only feel that way because you saw what your grandparents went through?
I didn't know what they were going through until I was a teenager.
Right.
I had no idea.
I mean, so they had made a bunch of money and lost a bunch of money. You knew that in your teenage years.
Yeah, I did.
So at that point, you started realizing, okay, I need to protect my money. Not only make a lot of money, but protect it as well.
I really didn't realize this until recently.
Oh, until recently?
Until recently.
When is recently, like what?
6 months.
6 months ago?
Yeah. I mean, bro, I put my head down and tried to achieve as much as I possibly could.
Okay.
And then I had to pick my head up and realize what I'd done. And I created a successful business, and there's consequences to that. There's commitments that you have to hold to keep a strong business going.
Okay. And then
I forgot who actually the quote that I heard, but I think it was on a podcast I was listening to, and it was very simple. It's just there's just a big difference in making $1 million and keeping $1 million. A very big difference.
It's deep, man.
Yeah.
And you live by that?
Trying to. I'm not a perfect man.
Okay. So going back to you lead a shipping company and then you jump into cars. How do you jump into cars?
Man, really, I bought my first car. Like I was lucky enough, to have a family that helped me with the first one, so my first car at 16 was a Ford Taurus.
Okay.
And they always told me, you take care of this Taurus and, you value it, it's going to turn into something bigger and better. So I was able to buy my first car on my 18th birthday. And that's really what led into my next entrepreneurial journey, because I was customizing cars and I started selling the parts from them.
So what was the car on your 18th birthday? What car?
G37 Infinity.
G37
Infinity. I was on one.
You was the man.
I was on one.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 2012, man, 18-year-old kid in the Infinity Coupe, it was a big deal.
Killing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. Or I thought I was.
You thought you...
I thought I was. Yeah. I learned some lessons from that car too.
From that car?
Yeah, man. I worked so hard to buy it. I paid it off in 18 months. And then I sold it because I was greedy and I wanted something better. I wanted something better, so I sold it.
And then what'd you buy after that?
I bought a Corvette.
Why'd you buy a Corvette?
I thought I wanted one.
You thought you wanted a Corvette?
People chase material things.
Well, that's true. A lot of people do.
Yeah. But I really couldn't afford it at the time. I was living beyond my means.
Right. So how much money were you making then around this time?
Which time? The Infinity or
the Infinity.
When I bought the Vet?
The Infinity. What were you doing for work around the time with the Infinity?
I was still working at that shipping company.
Okay.
And then I was selling car parts on the side.
Okay.
Like I was selling wheels, body kits, stuff like that.
Where were you selling it at?
I was actually on like internet forums mostly, other people that were passionate about the car that we had. And I sold most of it on there. Otherwise, Craigslist or stuff like that.
So you do a lot of buying and selling. So you ever been robbed before?
Yeah, I have.
And how, what was the situation with that?
I was 16 at the time. And, I had just stopped doing the iPhone thing. Mm-hmm. And a couple people that I knew from high school, knew that I was affiliated in the cell phone business. Right. So I hadn't been doing it for a while. And someone proposed an idea to me to buy some more phones.
Okay.
They had basically, at the time they had told me like, man, we got a bunch of phones really cheap, $200 a phone. And I was pretty greedy. So I was thinking, damn, they paid only $200. Like I'm gonna hit a lick. Like I'm gonna go buy them from them and I'm gonna hit a lick. And I pulled up on them off Park Lane.
Yeah.
And Abrams.
Right.
You know that area. Mm-hmm. Y'all know that area.
It's a little rough area.
And I pulled into an abandoned apartment complex.
Oh shit.
Trusting the people that had told me.
Yeah.
And they robbed me.
And they robbed you? Know the guys that robbed you?
Mm-hmm. I don't know the last name. I never was able to find him.
You never was able to find him?
No. The guy that set it up was he was one of those people that was in and out of school.
Okay. In and out of school.
So I was never able to find him after that.
Right. And you just always remember that. So that was the only time that happened to you?
That was the only time I've really been caught slipping.
Okay. You had a gun to your head or something like that? Or
they just pointed one at the window.
And they just told you to give it.
Because I was with my guy and he was in the car with me. Or, I thought he was my guy and he was in the car with me. And then another party, basically, I'd backed into a parking spot and then another party came to the
So the guy that set you up was in the car with you?
With me. And he basically just told me to give him all the cash I had. And I was in my grandma's car, man. And lucky enough, all they took was a couple $100.
Yeah. And when did you realize that he was the one that set you up?
Immediately.
Oh, because he's the one that told you to give you the cash?
Yeah.
Oh,
immediately.
Damn.
I knew what was going on immediately. And they dipped off and I never saw him again.
Okay, so he left with them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn.
Yep.
You got set up. You guys were close, or what was y'all guys' relationship like?
Man, I mean, we went to school together. But I mean, it was just cool. I mean, no pressure. Like there was never anything like weird going on. Like I never suspected it. It was just more of it's kind of like a betrayal to me.
Yeah, more like a betrayal.
More of a betrayal, yeah.
Did that change the way you looked at business from that point on? Like trusting people?
I don't think, nah, I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm still learning that, Still learning the right people to trust. But more or less, I learned to never put myself in a situation like that because my life is worth more than a phone.
Right, exactly. And then, so you get robbed, you do all that, you do the shipping company, you leave there, and then you buy the Infinity, 18 months pay it off. Mm-hmm. You sell the Infinity, then you buy a Corvette. Mm-hmm. And now this time you left the shipping company. So what are you doing for money now at that point?
I was valeting.
And you had a Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
You bought
I was valeting and I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods, and I was driving a Z06 Corvette.
So you were working at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Literally.
Valeting cars and then driving a Z06 Corvette.
Look like a clown.
Real
Looking back
life
at it.
dudes.
What the hell were you thinking,
Yeah,
Luke?
looking back, looking like a clown.
What the hell were you? So you pull up in a Corvette, you're valeting a damn Honda.
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking, Luke?
I think most people thought I was a rich kid.
Yeah.
But really, I was just barely making the payments.
You was barely making.
I was barely making the payments. Yeah. At the time, I mean, it was $1,000 a month, man.
God,
like that still is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
right.
But at the time, that age, like, it's tough.
So that was just the car note, or was that?
That was the car note. Insurance was another $400. I had a very nice 1-bedroom apartment at the time, and I mean, this all leads into another story, but I almost lost all of it. I did lose the Corvette.
How did that happen?
I couldn't pay for it anymore.
So they repossessed the Corvette.
It was an alternative situation where the car wasn't in my name. I had basically taken over the payments at the time.
And you couldn't, so you just couldn't keep up with the payments?
I couldn't afford it anymore.
So you had to give the car back to
At this point in time, so I had got the Corvette. I was still valeting, but I quit Dick's Sporting Goods because an opportunity to work for a friend of mine had arose. So I went and worked for him.
And what was he doing?
Exotic car rentals.
Okay. So that's where you pretty much got your in. Okay.
Exactly.
And then, so you couldn't make up the Corvette payments anymore.
I couldn't make the Corvette payments. I had the Corvette like a year, and the business that I was working for failed.
Oh, gotcha. So the exotic business failed.
The exotic car rental business I was working for failed.
And how'd you feel about that?
At the time, very angry.
Why were you? And you were angry because you had put all into it, right?
That was my plan after college. I was going to go work for this company, this other company, right? I was going to go work for this exotic car rental company. And when it failed, I mean, it put my life in a whirlwind because, I mean, at the time I was making pretty good money working for this guy, and it just stopped.
Just abruptly.
Yeah, I mean, he kept it rolling for a while, but you get caught up in so many things that you can't see, and it just stopped.
It just stopped altogether.
And
then from that point on, what did you see yourself doing at that point?
I had no idea what I was going to do because I was living, like I said, I was living beyond my means. I had a Corvette, I had an apartment, I was going out all the time. We were popping bottles, we were having fun.
Right.
Really unhappy though.
Yeah.
But that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Because you knew you were barely making it.
Yeah.
But you were looking like you were living a life. Basically.
Yeah.
And so that ate away at you inside because you knew that wasn't
100%. Yeah.
Real for you. And you think a lot of people feel that way? Like that
more than we probably account for.
Gotcha. And then so from that point
when that business failed, it put me in a whirlwind. So I started buying cash cars. I was buying cars off Craigslist, buying, selling, flipping.
And where'd you get that money from to do that? You just money? I
had like 4 bands left.
You had $4,000 saved up.
At that point in time. When I started the Classic, I had like $300. That's what most people don't know. But I had $4,000 left. And I went and bought a BMW 7 Series because I thought that was going to be a good sell.
Okay.
And I had this it was an 01 7 Series, not a new 7 Series. I paid $4,000 for it. And then everything that could have went wrong with that car went wrong.
Like what? Transmission went out?
I had to replace the transmission. I had to do the valve cover gaskets, the timing chain. So the first cash car I bought, I lost money on.
Wow.
So from there, I kind of learned what people wanted. And I started buying Hondas and Hyundais and Kias.
So how'd you get back to buy another car if you had lost money on that car and you only had $4,000 left?
I was able to sell the car. You know what? That's a lie. I traded it.
You traded
I traded it. That's what happened. Because I paid $4,500 for the car, and over 3 or 4 months, I had to put another $4,500 in it.
Okay.
And this guy approached me from Houston, and he had a GMC Sierra work truck.
Right.
And I was desperate to get rid of the BMW. So I traded him for that. And then I sold the truck for a little bit, like leveled myself out to where I wasn't in the red. And then from the truck, I started buying the Hyundais and Hondas, Japanese cars.
Just like that.
I was doing cash cars when I started the business.
When you started the Classic?
The Classic. And I also was valeting at the same time.
So you were still valeting when you started the Classic?
Yeah. I was opening other people's doors. Knowing that I had a Lambo in the warehouse. I was still working.
That's mighty humble of you.
You could say that.
A lot of people really can't make that sacrifice to humble themselves to do that. Do you think that's a problem with a lot of entrepreneurs?
I think it can be, but we get reality checked, and then we realize that you need to stay humble.
Right.
I wasn't always the most humble.
Well, I mean, you had a Corvette Z06, like when you were like 19.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to be humble at 19 with a Corvette Z06. Yeah. Don't you think?
I was a super douche back then.
And then, so you're buying, flipping the cars. Yep. You made the money back. Now you're starting the Classic.
Yeah.
And then, so did you set up the LLC for the Classic, or how did that idea come in the mix?
Set up the LLC January 2017, and I started operating the day I graduated, which was May 2017. May 13th, 2017 was my first rental.
Right.
Yep.
And you did that, and who was the first person you rented to?
It's just some guy. I mean, he rented an S550 for a wedding. He rented it for 3 days.
And how much you make off of that?
In the beginning, I was having to source the cars from other people, so I gave away a pretty big percentage. I think I made like $400 or $500.
But it was at that moment you knew that was a good business to be in.
No, I knew before then.
Because he already with the other guy, right?
The other guy. I knew the potential.
So what was the biggest thing you learned from working at that rental place and that failing, and then you starting your own?
To me, I think the biggest thing I learned from that was organic progression. Not forcing anything, not taking money from other people just because it's money, just doing it from the ground up.
Right.
And building a strong foundation was what I learned to do.
And you started the Classic with all your own money?
I really didn't have any money when I started the Classic.
So where'd you get the money from?
I didn't have any money when I started. I had maybe $300-$400 in my bank account. I started the Classic pretty much, just from a branding perspective. I came up with this brand, and I told myself I was going to push it regardless, even if people didn't support it in the beginning, which they didn't. Mm-hmm. No one supported me in the beginning. They didn't believe me. They didn't think I could do it. Family, friends.
So nobody believed in you?
No. I don't think most of my family realized the severity of the situation until recently.
Of them not believing in you?
Yeah, it's very real.
Right. And then...
I can sit here and talk about renting Lambos all day, but until you walk into my shop and see 3 of them, you're probably not going to believe me.
Right. And so when you think them not believing in you, you think that may have
that fired me up.
Pushed you to another level, right?
Absolutely. One of the things I'm least proud of was the way I started the business. I started it out of anger and revenge. But I quickly, after about a year of being angry at the guy I used to work for, we reconciled. Mm-hmm. And we're cool to this day.
And you were angry at him because he just shut down abruptly.
He wouldn't, I've become, I guess, a little more open these days because I don't feel like I can critique another man going through a situation. But at the time, he wouldn't tell me what was wrong. So I kept working, and I wasn't getting paid, but I kept working because I believed in it. So I was bitter and upset.
You was mad that you feel like you got used, basically.
Yeah, that wasn't his intention. He was drowning.
Right.
So, I'd like to think I've become a bigger person.
Because of that?
Because of that. Because I don't think you should start anything out of revenge. That's just not healthy.
So what do you think the way you should have started the Classic? What way do you think you should have started it?
It's tough to say, man. Things happen, and I'm grateful for the way it happened. But I think the only thing I would have changed is just starting with a little less hate in my heart.
Mm-hmm. At everybody, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when your grandparents didn't believe in you,
my grandma believed in me.
She believed in you?
But my grandma's a very naive woman. I love her to death. But she grew up in the Midwest in a town of 300 people.
Right.
So all she cares about is me being safe. She doesn't care about money or business progression. Just me being safe.
And so how did you get past pushing the brand and nobody cared about, like nobody helped you push it or anything like that? Or
it took time, man. I mean, it really did. I mean, I don't know how many times I had to type out the classic, you know, and like I even doubted myself because it was like, damn, like, is anyone going to understand what I really mean? Like people were confused in the beginning. Like, what is the classic? Like the amount of times I had to explain it.
How'd you come up with that name?
Man, a lot of it, you know, my cousin and I were really just brainstorming. Coming up with the name was one of the most difficult things, but really it comes from the original definition of classic. The word classic, which is to be of the highest quality. So I told myself I was going to create a high quality luxury transportation service.
And the classic.
Just classic. But I mean, the plan for the classic is much bigger than just a car rental service. So, you know, I was thinking big at the time by naming it that. Because I could have come out here and said, you know, Premier Exotic Rental or something, some other like, you know, standard name.
Right.
But I was thinking big.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so you pushed the brand, and when did you actually start seeing the brand take off? Like, how many years was it for you?
It took about 8 to 12 months.
8 to 12 months.
I was picking up pennies, you know, just trying to get by, just trying to make it, you know. I pull up to any music video shoot, it didn't matter, even though, you know, a music video doesn't pay nearly as well as an actual rental.
Right.
But I was willing to do it. I was willing to pull up and meet people and network and try to get my name out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, that takes an extreme amount of humility to be able to do that, you know.
It took a lot, man, just because, I mean, people don't take you seriously or people want to get something out of you. And you think that people are here for you.
Right.
And they show themselves.
So I'm curious, Luke, do you feel like it would have been easier or maybe harder for you to do your business if you weren't white? Like, did people take you more serious?
I definitely think it would be. I don't know if everyone knows, but my girlfriend is black.
Right.
And she reminds me of my white privilege quite often.
Really?
I'm a white guy.
So you're
that's a fact.
So you're aware of your white privilege?
I'm aware of my white privilege.
And what exactly is that?
I mean, he can't answer that.
Why can't he answer that, TK? TQ, my bad.
Because being a white person, you can't experience white privilege because you're living in it. It's kind of like
I'll give y'all an example.
A black person.
And I give an example.
Let me give this one first. Right. So I was having a conversation with my girlfriend recently, and she was baiting me with this conversation.
Okay.
Because no matter how cool I am, I can still forget, you know, that I have that privilege. Like he said. So she asked me, she said, "Are you a Democrat or a Republican?" And I said, "I don't really fuck with politics." And she said, "It must be nice to have the privilege to not be affected by it."
And what is your reaction to that?
Fuck am I gonna say?
He might as well hit the couch.
Yeah. What am I gonna say? Come on.
Might as well hit the kitchen.
No,
I mean, I'm definitely aware of it, man. I mean, it's kind of the current situation in the world.
So you don't fuck with politics, period.
I really don't pay too much attention to it because it just kind of stresses me out and frustrates me.
Right. And with you being a white guy, so you don't really have to worry about like anything of your rights being taken away or anything like that. Or how do you feel like about police shootings and stuff like that?
I mean, it's fucking disgusting. I mean,
but it affects you though. When you see it, it does something to you.
Of course.
I mean,
the majority of my friends are not white, so of course it affects me. I've honestly felt like I haven't been doing as much as I can, to be honest with you, when it comes to being verbal about the problems in the world. Because I feel like if I was a little bit more vocal, I could have a positive effect. So that's something I'm trying to work on.
Right. And you just think, so you think you're not as vocal because you're just not the type of guy, or?
I think I've been, look, not to like critique myself too much, but I think I've been a little selfish. You know, I think all of us are inherently a little selfish. And I've just been too worried about myself and my business lately.
And also being a businessman.
I was just going to say that too.
You don't have time.
Owner.
You don't have time to be like scrolling down your timeline, arguing, or trying to have someone reflect their problems or their energy into what you're trying to get their opinion to be on certain things. Like our country has been this way for years. It's just only become a lens because of phones
Social
and
media,
camera phones,
right.
and people can record the shit. But like, come on, bro. Like our country been this way for years.
It's
so,
not just our country, it's our world.
It's our world, period. Yeah.
There's been turmoil in the Middle East for years, but you're just seeing more of it.
Because of social media.
Because of
Wider
social media.
lenses and opportunities. But then to ask a white guy that's like 27, 28, could he change the world? Of course. But to change the world, you gotta change Carrollton first. You gotta change Dallas first. You gotta be organic. And with the classic seeing Beezy or Trap Boy come up there getting their cars, and they aren't the ones that should be driving the cars, to truthfully be honest, if they're being judged. So that's the change, because it's organic and it's open. It's an opportunity for these guys that's over there, that's involved in something that's over there, to actually come into a place that's in Carrollton, a tiny ass town that got like 2 stores, you feel me? And they come up there packed out, you know what I'm saying? Trapped out, ready. That's the job. That's the placement for him. Like being able to put those Lambos and them Bentleys into our place, because the only time we as black people get a chance to ever drive them cars is off of basketball or off of an 8-ball. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just facts. Like there really is a in between when trying to like bridge that gap. But like for him, I've actually watched the growth since 2017. Like we came around each other because I was looking for a corporate partner to pay for Wayne's private jet to come from Louisiana to Texas during the draft party, Wayne the artist. And I called Luke. I go up there and I'm on the phone with Luke for 2 hours talking to him. But I go to his office and there's a black guy sitting at the table pretending that the business is ran by him. And that's the disconnect between us and them. They get those places and they just try to pass the play on.
Right.
We get those and we be trying to be tough and hard.
Right.
And that's the true problem. The problem isn't like, what can you do for this race? It's like, truly, when can black people be grateful for our shit and then just be ourselves and be comfortable with that shit first? Because at the end of the day, our race is easier than theirs, because we understand struggles in a way that the world can't even understand, just coming off them chains and them shackles. If a person can value that, then they gonna win. Their thing is they're just going to win regardless, and they're going to come to the table with 2 black guys and just create. We can't, you feel me? So asking a white guy, can he change the world by doing those type of things, I say that's the wrong question, because it's already occurring, because we're here like right now. Like we drove from a place that got 8 cars that's worth 1.5 million and up. And I can say, coming from the place I come from, which is a small fucking city, I haven't ever seen that until I got to Dallas. I didn't get those opportunities until I got to Dallas. So it's just being bigger than what you see every day, like day to day, and just understanding the value. Same as with what any be doing, like with the entire like process of trying to teach people to like purchase their block.
Right.
Like go
and not to cut you off, TQ, but
no, you good.
I was gonna make a few points real quick.
Go ahead.
First off, to my left, Vinny throws events out here, Dallas, LA, Miami. TQ right next to him, my brand manager. Just felt like everyone needed an introduction.
Oh yeah.
A few things though. Number one, I would be ignorant and naive to say that I wouldn't have had it easier if I was white. That would be ignorant of me to say, because I didn't feel the resistance like a person of color would.
Right.
And the other thing, I think, touching on what TQ said, I think a lot of white people, I think as a white person, you have a duty to educate yourself on what people of color have gone through and are going through. But a lot of white people are looking for purpose because they don't know what that struggle's like. But that's their choice to learn about it.
Right. And do you think you only feel that way because your girlfriend's black?
I think, honestly, I tell people this a lot, right? I've always been a cool white guy.
Mm-hmm.
Always been a cool white guy. But I never realized the depths of generational curses or some of the patterns that occur until I was in a relationship with a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole other, it's just, you have to experience it, you know? The second she and I came together, I started experiencing what she experiences. And now I'm much more aware.
And how'd you meet her?
We met through a mutual friend, actually.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't think I was shit when we met. Because at the time when we met, I was very overconfident.
Right.
We met when I was working for that other company.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew each other for, 6, 7, 8 months before we actually started dating.
Right.
But I would come into where she worked, and I thought I was real slick.
And what does she do?
Right now?
What then?
She was a secretary at a car dealership.
Oh.
Just part-time. My girlfriend's very intelligent. So
Okay.
she was in college. That was just a part-time summer gig.
Okay. And then,
Yeah.
and what does she do now?
She's actually an author.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she's got 2 books coming out soon, but she also works for a cosmetic company in LA.
Okay. Okay. And what do you think geared you towards her to say, this is the woman I want to be with?
Ooh, everything about our relationship was different to anything else I'd ever experienced. And I'm not going to say that was just because she's a black woman. It was just, everything was different. I wasn't on the hunt for a woman of color.
So she was the first black woman you'd ever been with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
First and only.
First and only. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Got to clear that up for everybody.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
Yeah. And you making that decision, let's say, you being in an interracial relationship, right? That makes things a little bit more difficult, right?
It does.
So do you feel like...
Because the typical interracial relationships that you see are a black man and a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's more common. So it's definitely been different, I think. Because not every black man is happy to see me with her, just like every white woman is not happy to see her with me.
Right. And do you think she's helped you in your business in any way, shape, or form?
Absolutely.
And how was that?
She humbles me.
Mm-hmm.
Because before her, I was really wasting money.
on just drinking, like going out?
Going out, just pissing it away.
Right. And you think
she's really helped me see who is here for me.
Right. And you think that she's helped you grow exponentially with the business?
Yeah, I do. Even though she didn't have like she's not back here making business plays with me. Mm-hmm. She's just always had my best interest in mind.
So you're one of the kind of guys that believe like you need just one good woman and that'll help you achieve everything.
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm good.
Okay. So you plan on getting married anytime soon?
Yeah. I mean, I knew a month in that I wanted to marry her. We're rocking on 3 years now.
How'd you know that?
You just know.
After a month?
You just know. You just know when it's the one.
You just know.
You just know. I knew because I accidentally told her I loved her.
Accidentally?
Accidentally. It just slipped.
That's organic then. That's good love.
I don't know if any looking like he like, shit, I ain't never experienced that before.
I have.
I'm serious. You should have seen the way
the difference
we looked
between
at
me
each
and
other.
him is I lost mine.
You lost yours?
I wasn't as humble.
How'd you lose yours, Vinny? Just
trying to chase dreams. She was a lawyer. She was a black woman that came from like a real well put together family. Mm-hmm. I'm from Miami. And shit. We was dating like 8 years, and then she just got to the point where she was like, that was wild.
You said 8 years? Damn, you put 8 years into that, Vinny? And you just dropped it all like that.
Just because you've been with someone a long time doesn't mean you're going to keep them. Mm-hmm. And that's not the flaw of any.
I mean, I say 8 years. I mean, that's a long time to be invested in somebody that not go anywhere.
I mean, I think it's a long time to not correct yourself.
That's what I was about to lead into. That's what I was about to lead into.
That's grown.
She was a real woman. You know what I mean? Like when you're dating a woman, and y'all break up, like think about it. How many times does a man really tell a woman like you'll never find nobody like me? Women can say that with a lot more confidence. You know what I'm saying?
You think so?
Yes.
Sure.
Huh. I feel like it'd be the other way around.
Let's be honest, man. These days, there's another 5 girls or another 5 guys just waiting in your girl's DM for you to slip.
I mean, that's true.
All day.
It just all depends.
The girl, so when I lost her, she just got fed up, right? Mm-hmm. She, 8 years, loved the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. I would say not even a year later, she got with like the new guy. He'd been barking up her tree the whole time. I never knew.
Right.
They still together today, and me and her are cool because she's my lawyer for all my stuff.
Wow. And you never try to like rekindle it or anything like that?
That's a woman, bro. I'm gonna look like a boy doing that. I'm not a boy no more.
But listen to the wisdom in what he's saying, because it affected him.
Right.
And he learned from it.
So how old were you when you met her?
Shoot, like 16.
And how old are you now, Vinny?
29.
29. So you just 13 years later, you just like, you still remember that relationship to this day?
Bruh, she bought me my first car.
She bought you a car?
Yeah. I was graduating high school, and it was like a little cash car. And she, we went through high school together, so she knew me.
Okay.
And she bought me my first car. And at the time, I think I was real naive to like listening to other people to like understand myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
that when you're dating someone, especially men, we forget that like when you're looking at your woman, you're kind of looking at a mirror. This person knows you. They see you.
She's the eyes in the back of your head.
And you're never the same person. Exactly. And you're never the same person. Like here it is 4 years later, we're still like going through the same shit. Obviously I wasn't growing. So while she's like, okay, I forgave you for this and we got past this or whatever the good and the bad was then, like we needed to create different ones.
So you were just primarily cheating back then?
I'll just say not paying attention to her, not communicating with her, just not making her feel like the woman.
Here's the thing, right? Cheating doesn't necessarily mean that you're going out and seeking another partner.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sometimes just not paying attention or giving someone time is even worse than cheating on them.
She's a lawyer. She don't care about all that. She want the
they
time,
care about
the
time.
attention.
Yeah, women care about time.
That's
you remember what I said about there being a difference between making $1 million and keeping $1 million?
Absolutely.
There's a big difference between getting a girlfriend and keeping
a girlfriend
or a good woman. There's a big difference.
Well, this is the thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Do you feel like a lot, from what I've heard from women, a lot of guys try to get a girl's attention, so they do all this stuff, right? And then along the way, they just start, slowly falling off. Like they come at a woman on 10,
this
then they
was
drop
me.
down to a 7.
This was me.
You did that.
My girlfriend and I haven't always, she's always been great to me, but I haven't always been great to her.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a girlfriend and started a business within the same 2-month period.
That's a bad recipe.
That's very difficult to maintain. And I've done it. And I've received a lot of criticism, and I've had people tell me that I couldn't do it. But I told her this not too long ago. I said, I feel like, and this took a lot for me to admit this, I felt like I catfished her. Because
why do you feel
I came off like I was a very genuine, caring person. But the way I was conducting myself showed otherwise. Because I neglected her.
And how did you correct that moving forward once you realized it?
You just have to be more aware. And you have to learn to build boundaries. Because not having boundaries was what was causing issues in my relationship. Because I was one of those people, excuse me, that I would tell her, this is what I would tell her. Do you want me to answer the phone so we can make money? So we can live in this place?
Oh, shit.
That's how I lost mine too.
Do you want,
that?
This phone call is money. Do you not want me to make money? That was my excuse.
True entrepreneur shit.
And how'd you go about a way of correcting that?
I'm still correcting it.
Well, when did you figure out that you didn't come off as the same person anymore? How long in a relationship?
Well, I almost lost her.
How many months in till you almost lost her?
Over 2 years.
And at 2 years, you almost lost her.
She put up with my shit for 2 years.
Right.
It stuck by me.
It stuck by. How long you been with her so far?
It'll be 3 years in April.
Okay. So at 2 year mark, you almost lost her.
Yeah.
And you had to reel everything back in.
I had to change.
You had to change.
I had to change. I'm still changing.
And
I'm still overly committed to my business.
Right.
Still. So I'm still working on building boundaries.
Right. And when did you realize that you had almost lost her? Like, what was the last straw for her that you think she was like, okay, she's about to leave. I need to change now.
She fucking told me.
I was just about to say, you never know.
Yeah,
you don't know until they got that one look in their face.
She probably doesn't want me to put all this out there, but she had gone to visit a friend in DC, and I had a family friend, and I had just fucked up one last time.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm done. Don't even come to the airport to get me.
Wow.
And it was one of the like I said, I've had a lot of realizations in life, but that was probably the biggest one recently.
And do you feel
over the past year?
And do you feel like with you having a successful business, it's hard for you to stay faithful to one woman?
No.
Well, a lot of guys use that probably as an excuse. Some guys that may be in a position of fame, or they may be in a position where they make a lot of money.
I'm trying to make one woman happy.
One woman happy?
I'm not trying to be out here doing that.
Right. And with her being your, girlfriend for so long, you feel like she's your number one supporter in your business?
Yes.
Right.
Even though she knows I haven't always had a healthy relationship with the business, she still supports it.
And do you feel like you support her as equally in her endeavors?
I didn't always. I was a hypocrite.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And insecurity.
And you started what, that 2 year mark? That's when you changed and that as well too?
It was a little after 2 years, but I realized that if I wasn't going to support her, someone else would.
Damn, that's deep.
Period.
That's facts. If you don't pay attention,
my ex is still with the nigga.
If you don't pay attention to someone else will.
Right.
And she never did that. She never went out and looked. I realized that was going to be the situation if I didn't do something.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you feel like it would have been beneficial to you to break up with her? Or you think you'd have been further along in your business?
No.
Not whatsoever.
I never thought that.
Never thought that.
Never thought that.
Gotcha. Okay.
A lot of people make excuses like that, though.
For sure. Hey, I want to touch on something because I think everybody needs to know.
Go ahead.
We was talking about the black and white thing.
Yeah, go
One
ahead.
thing, like when it comes to Luke, I'm gonna say, like, it's not a color thing, and I can say that from a business standpoint. I'm not gonna get.
If I said that
into
though,
it.
that would be problematic to clarify. White
Probably.
people who say I don't see color, that's a problematic statement.
Real talk, you've never said that. But
I've never said that, but a lot of people do.
But one thing I can say is, like, from a business standpoint, you know, me and Luke, like, to me is like my bro. You know what I mean? And within my, like, I've been doing business in Dallas maybe 9 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get deep into it. One, because he's a businessman. He works with high class, you know, individuals. So I went through all these problems being a black guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one day I'm frustrated. I keep, you know, telling Luke about him, you know what I mean? Just to like vent, you know, he always listens to me, give me advice. The biggest thing, you want to know something, like he gave me something that I think I'll always remember and I would never be able to pay for. Basically kind of chewed me out in such a way of like, I'm white. Why are you not allowing me to go talk to these people? For somebody to come to you, like, name one black man that got enough money to pay for somebody to willingly say that to you. Not you go to them and say, I'll pay you to do this or da-da-da-da-da. Right. It's, dog, you my homie, you my bro. Why are you talking to them when I can go bullshit the shits?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's kind of deep, because being in Miami and watching my dad build businesses and be able to, you know, talk to a lot of different type of people, I didn't expect that coming here, you know. And then for someone to like just genuinely and calmly after over time say like express their frustration that I'm not using the fact that we're friends.
Right.
First. Like, I think that say more than like even over color. It just talks about the loyalty that he puts into his friends, into his business, and like into his woman. You know what I mean? So I think when it comes to like the whole color thing, I think when it comes to this one individual and his business, a lot of things I would personally say I wouldn't even want him to speak on, because he doesn't get paid by a lot of individuals like us.
Exactly.
His love is enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't go spend that money on those types of cars. So I think that his life is very interesting. And I like a lot of your questions, because I think that that's in America, the more people you want to be cool with, the more that you put yourself into a bucket. You know what I mean? Like, you have like this person, like you got LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
Plus.
It's not just like
plus.
It's not just like, hey, I love this person.
Right.
Everything is gonna get categorized. You know what I mean? And I think that those are barriers that I've seen him be able to break for us.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Vinny.
You want to know what made my girl give me a shot? Because she don't necessarily like white people.
Your girl, she doesn't like white people?
He said she doesn't necessarily like white people.
Just being honest.
So why do you think she likes you?
One of the main reasons she gave me a shot is because I didn't tell her that she was pretty for a black girl.
Wow.
What'd you say?
Think about that.
What did you
think? So think this from a different perspective.
You don't know what that means?
I know exactly what that means. I want to know what he said though. What did you tell her instead of that?
I told her she was beautiful because of who she was.
And you think you probably was the first white guy that did that?
She went to a primarily, like, I didn't grow up with white people. I was the minority in the schools I went to.
Right.
But my girlfriend came from a pretty tough background, but her mom always made sure they were in good schools.
Right.
Regardless of the home situation. But she went to a primarily white school. So she had white males continuously tell her, "You're pretty for a black girl."
Right.
That's so offensive.
That is offensive. That's a sideways compliment.
So tell me this right here, Luke. Do you feel like because you didn't grow up around a lot of black people, that's why you don't?
I did grow up around a lot of black people.
My bad, I'm sorry. Grew up around a lot of white people. Do you feel like that's why you have majority of black friends now?
Say it one more time.
Since you didn't grow up around a majority of white people, you primarily hung around black people. So do you think that's why you hang around black people now?
Interestingly enough, okay, so I didn't
pause.
It's an interesting question.
Before he answers
I want to hear your answer too.
I'm gonna say that we were raised the same way. I was also raised with grandparents. I had two parents that weren't able to be around off of the choices that they were actually like making. So from the age of 4 till about 18, I was raised with my grandparents. My grandfather was the guy that had built Greektown casino in Detroit. My granny is a retired nurse. So coming from that type of cloth, you just get you are taught to be open. You're taught to be aware, optimistic, especially coming from that old cloth.
You're meant to be compassionate.
Compassion comes from the baby boomers. Baby boomer era was all compassionate. It was all people that were actually coming out of that Great Depression, working hard, getting down, doing things with their minds and their bodies and their souls to actually be great. So I can say I'm going to answer the question for him and say, I wouldn't say being raised around black people. I say being raised with values and being raised with the understanding that you have to understand and be bigger than what you are today. So if you can value that and also see where your parents are and say, okay, I'm going to be better than this, and I'm also going to go over there and involve in that type of business. That's the thing, because I grew up in the hood by choice because of the grandparents being the actual first black people on that block. Then I went to private school.
Right.
So going to private school, it was always Ralph shirt, Ralph pants, Kohan boots.
Right.
From like fucking 3rd grade to 8th grade. So I grew up private school, but then I go from private school to the trap house to the private school, then private school baseball field. So I was involved in those type of things that they actually do for fun and play in, and go-karts, and the guys that got the 10-acre cribs with toys all around. So it's actually just being able to transcend, like, and that's why I think Luke can be in any room, because I can be in any room, especially with a person that like carries a speech impediment. I ain't afraid to talk. Mm-hmm. I ain't afraid to do anything, and I'm always building a brand because I'm a brand. I've always been a brand. Like I had to build that. So like I'm going to answer that question for him, because you asking some questions like you come in hard, Vlad Jr.
We just having a conversation, man.
Oh, it's great though.
I'm just
this
asking,
actually
man.
Fun though. Like I can tell.
No, I'm enjoying this thoroughly.
Because my thing is, Luke, is that you don't see too
most
many
people just ask me about money and cars. You're asking about stuff that really matters.
I mean,
substance.
The thing is, you don't see too many white guys that just hang around a lot of black guys, unless they usually grew up in that environment around mostly black people where they feel comfortable. So my next question is, do you feel comfortable or feel uncomfortable around mostly white guys? Like that are like, let's say, Highland Park kind of guys.
I usually feel like, I really don't feel like I relate in a lot of situations. I mean, what are we going to relate over? Like the fact that we're both white? There aren't white groups that meet together. What are they called?
But then I also that's a great point, because I tell black people all the time, we gotta quit saying black this, black that, because as soon as a white person say white excellence night, black excellence night, all that, we gonna go crazy. We gonna go to Shade Room, Baller Alert. We gonna be tagging, posting. We gonna be outraged.
So you don't feel like black people should have like their own category of things?
We already have our category.
And what is that?
We sell it.
Our category is ourselves. I'm sorry.
Master P's the only one that is successful with a record label. But you know why? You want to know why? Because black people want upfront money.
Would Kylie Jenner?
He didn't take upfront money.
Think about it. Would Kylie Jenner be as successful if Tyga didn't tell her to steal black culture?
Or even would
she?
Or even
where did Tyga? Where? Go ahead.
Or even like we can't create a black quote unquote entity, and then when white people do it,
right,
we can't get upset. So picture how you would react if it said white excellence night. You would expect to see all white fucking excellence. You expect to see Bill Gates. You'll expect to see all this, but then you'll be outraged. But then we as black people, we say, okay, well, we've been down all these years. It's our turn. No, like we have to just create our opportunities and just create, because there are charities like the breast cancer charity, Susan Komen, which is for everybody, even though it's for breast cancer only.
Right.
It's still for everybody. So black people, we've already got fucking basketball, which means it should be called black basketball then.
Right.
That's stupid. That's ignorant.
Well, no,
you know what I'm saying?
This is the thing. So,
but do you think, like, this isn't, kind of an outside question, but do you think that, let me think how I'm going to say this right. Do you think that black people would feel the need to have those groups if it wasn't for white people trying to steal?
I can tell you this.
Because I understand the need to want.
There's a book. It costs $85 on Amazon. It's called Black Bourgeoisie. Every black kid should read it. Black Bourgeoisie explains to you why we have complexions, why black people treat
brown paper bag theory.
Exactly. And it goes back to 1885. It was revised in 1910 and it was re-released in 1914. And it's one of the best books that a black person can ever read, because that book teaches you to actually understand that when they were creating like NAACP and Charles Drew was over there and the Garveys was over there, their problem was they were still taking the slave actions and the separations based off of being in the house and out the house, and taking those principles that they were built on. So everyone's just built on certain type of principles. But if like we truly educate ourselves, we're going to understand that our race is all common. It's one race. We're just all toned out. We're all pigmented tones. So our tone controls our angle. So as a guy that's like for example, you have a guy like Chris Brown. Chris and Rihanna went through a big problem. Chris was able to transcend out of that over time, but in the beginning it was hard. But then when people look back, it's a whole other angle that they go on. They're asking questions like, okay, what did she do? What did blah, blah, blah? Because the questions come out as time changes. Right. So as the time change, we have to go with those times. Like black people just got the right to fucking go at the polls in fucking 1965. That means it's only 54 years old that like we can actually vote. That actually shows you the importance of our power. So we have to be grateful for those things rather than trying to build these black entities to create larger awareness for the things that we already know, like
right.
we're already understanding that we've been down for these years. It's complicated to get this. It's complicated to go into the car place and get you a good credit loan. It's just hard, but you can actually be creative.
You know what? That's actually a good point. I have to cut you off, TQ.
Oh no, it's all good. It's love.
Luke, back to that again. I'm glad you said that.
Back to it.
When you first started the Classic,
yes,
were you afraid of renting cars to black people?
No.
Not one bit. Did you feel like you'd be more damaged versus...
I was afraid. No.
Okay.
Check it.
The hookups.
No, check it. I was more afraid of denying a black person purely due to not having what's required and being called a racist because of it.
Right.
I was more worried about that.
That's real.
And what do you mean what's required?
You don't have your license.
Insurance.
You don't have insurance.
Gotcha.
And me denying a black person as a white person, someone could easily twist that and be like, oh, he don't want to rent to black people. And
that's it. Pretty much with social media, right?
Reviews and ratings are everything these days.
Right.
All it takes is one.
All it takes is one. That's true.
Seriously.
That's true.
Think about that. What was the guy's name that owned the Clippers?
Donald Sterling.
Yeah.
That was a private conversation.
Very private.
And they made an example of that man.
Right. Well, banned for life.
That's an example.
Right.
Which is crazy because he's
This
banned,
is America. They make examples out of
still.
people.
And he's a billionaire still, though.
Yeah, but you could think his passion could have been basketball, and they made an example and
removed him from for life. You're right.
Exactly.
And with that being said, Luke, so you're not hanging around other white. So do you have any white friends?
Yeah, I didn't really get to lead into it.
We got to edit this right because it just sounds like we got to edit this right. First of all, he got hella friends. All colors, all colors, all type of friends.
I mean, I'm just asking because he said, "What am I going to talk to white guys about besides being white?" So I'm like, at this point, do you have any white friends?
What's good, Johnny?
Check it. So more or less, so let's run it from the beginning. I grew up off Spring Valley in Coit.
Right.
This is a very Hispanic area.
Mm-hmm.
When I started elementary school, the breakdown was about 30% white, 30% black, 30% Hispanic, 10% other. By the time I reached fourth grade, there were no white people. Majority of the black kids were gone, and it was just me and Hispanic kids.
Mm-hmm.
So for 4 years, I really wish that I had learned Spanish when I was a kid, just because for those years, I didn't really understand how everyone else was communicating. I was an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
I was the minority. I didn't really have a group of white friends until I lost weight in high school. I was chubby the majority of my childhood.
They don't want to be your friend because you were chubby?
I barely was on the outside. I was like, shit's cliquey, bro. Like, kids can be cliquey. So, like, there was a group of popular white kids, and I didn't fit the bill of what they wanted to be in their friend group until I lost weight.
Gotcha.
I was just an outsider. And then I went from being an outsider, to actually having white friends.
Gotcha.
But the majority of my white friends went off to college. I stayed home.
And so did you ever go to college?
Yeah, I have a degree.
But you went...
I went to community college.
First.
And that was frowned upon by my white friends.
Why do you think that is?
Because everyone wanted a college experience. I didn't get the typical college experience.
University.
And why'd you pick community college?
I didn't. My grandpa died my first semester of college. So I stayed home. My grandpa was the closest thing to a dad I had.
Right.
So I wasn't going to leave.
You weren't going to leave after that?
No.
So what community college did you go to?
Richland, Brookhaven.
Colin. Okay. And then
I had a 1.6 my first semester. I was wildly depressed.
Why? Oh, that's right, because your grandpa passed. That's right.
My grandpa passed away. All of my friends moved off to college, and the girl that I was dating at the time broke up with me.
So you were just going
We were going to go to the same school together, and she broke up with me because I wasn't going.
And what school was that?
I was going to go to OU.
OU.
But, I mean, it's the biggest blessing I ever could have asked for. If I would have went off to a university, I wouldn't have made it because my grandpa passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now.
Right. Because you think you would have got there, flunked out because your grandpa passed away.
Absolutely.
And then,
which would have been a setback.
Right. And do you think you ever would have recovered from that to go back to school at OU?
I probably would have still ended up in community college.
Okay.
It just would have delayed the process.
Okay. And what do you think, about that, Luke? I'm glad you brought that up. So with you having a degree, do you feel like that helped towards your business as well too?
Yes. But when I was in school, I didn't believe that.
Why do you believe that now?
Oh, I went to UTD, the University of Texas at Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
They have a business school, the Jindal School of Management. That's what it's called, School of Management.
Mm-hmm.
And in the majority of my business classes, it was very management centered. And I was very rebellious in those classes because I would continuously tell myself, fuck that, I'm going to own my own business. What you don't realize is that with owning your own business, you have to manage people and you have to manage money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that college made me into a polished businessman.
So do you feel like
versus just someone that can make money?
So do you feel like most entrepreneurs should go to school?
I think everyone has their own path.
That's a great answer.
I was fortunate enough that, like I said, I was raised by my grandparents. My mom was around. She just lives an alternative lifestyle. And I was lucky enough that she paid for my first 4 years of school.
Mm-hmm.
So my first 2 years at community college, we saved a ton of money. And she told me if I didn't graduate within 4 years, I'd have to pay for anything else. And I graduated in 5 years. So I got away with only 1 year of paying for college.
Right.
So I was very fortunate to have that. Okay,
so they pay for you to go to school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you think, so that basically, because you didn't get put back with the loans and all that. Now,
I had one student loan, but
right.
Community college is like $2,000 a year, right. And then I got in-state tuition.
Right. So do you feel like you feel that way about school because you did have the student loans? Do you think you would have felt that way if, let's say, you went in the average student loan debt, which is $30,000? Would you still feel that way?
I don't think so. I don't think I would have graduated from college if it wasn't paid for.
And why?
Because I wouldn't have gone.
You wouldn't have gone?
No.
Okay. But so do you feel like people need to go to school?
I think they do. Looking back on it, a few years later, I graduated in 2017. Looking back on it, I'm very grateful for it.
But do you feel like you're only saying that because somebody else paid for it?
I don't think that I would have got to appreciate it if someone else didn't pay for it. Because I don't think I would have gone. So I wouldn't know what it was like if I didn't go.
Right. And let's say, for instance, that kid that, let's say their parents can't afford for them to pay for them to go to school and all that, and they have to take out loans and all that. Let's say they're in $30,000-$40,000 worth of debt and they get a economics degree, right? And
I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think the system is kind of set up against us, to be honest. I mean us, I say just kids in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is valuable. It just really depends on what you're going to do. What you're going to do with yourself.
And why do you say the system is set up?
Obviously, there's, because it's very fucking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend got a full ride to her school.
And where'd she go to school at?
She went to American University.
Oh, okay.
A private school in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin went there.
Like $60,000 a year. Hell yeah, it's no joke. Told you she's smart.
She got a full ride.
Damn.
She got a full ride, but she still walked out with $30,000 in debt.
Wow. Right. And
that's private school.
I didn't know she went.
Well, that's private school. You're right. But the average student loan debt is $30,000 for somebody to finish a degree in 4 years.
I think someone's lucky to get away with $30,000.
I was about to say that.
They're lucky to get away with $30,000. Yeah. Would you say if you had a $30,000 bill, do you feel like it would have still been worth it? We got all day.
I think so. For me, it was. My most influential year was my last year because I got to take entrepreneurial classes. And that's what I was passionate about.
And you think that's what spurred you more with the business?
I think that I had my epiphany in one of my entrepreneurial classes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the company I worked for had failed,
mm-hmm.
and I was taking entrepreneurial classes, and I was thinking that I could do it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in school.
Right. So you feel like if you had a son, would you pay for him to go to school the same way
It would probably be a similar situation. If you don't graduate in 4 years, it's on you.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to be a stay-at-home dad. That's my
your goal?
Yeah.
Why do you want to be a stay-at-home dad?
I was a stay-at-home dad.
Because I didn't have that when I was a kid.
So what is your relationship like with your parents now?
My dad and I just linked up really for the first time when I was turning 21. He's a great person.
And how was that?
I just didn't get to have him around due to other situations.
Right.
With my family. I have a very messy family.
You have a very messy family?
Messy.
And why do you think he left?
He didn't have a choice.
He didn't have a choice?
They forced him to leave.
And you think it was your grandparents that forced him to leave?
Yes.
And not having a dad
my mom came out of the closet. And it was, at the time, it was an embarrassment to the family.
Right.
So they more or less forced him to leave.
So your mom came out of the closet and said she was gay?
Lesbian, yeah.
Lesbian, right. And we got to make sure we got these letters correct. Trying to get canceled in here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So she said came out and said she was a lesbian. And how do you think that affects you to this day?
It affected me more as a child, just because, obviously things are a lot different today than they were in the early 2000s. It wasn't as accepted. Right. So I hid it the majority of my childhood.
Right.
No one knew.
Because you were embarrassed. Because
I was embarrassed. Kids are cruel, man.
Right.
They'll look for it. Your mom, they'll look for anything to make fun of you.
And when did you start accepting that she was a lesbian?
Probably junior high. Mm-hmm. Took me a while.
It took you a minute? Okay.
It took me a minute. No, it really did. It didn't make sense to me.
Right.
If I was a kid. For the longest time, bro, I was like 22 years old when I found out why I was even alive. I didn't know my story.
Right.
Until my dad told me.
When you
no
were
one
21.
told me when we linked up. He lives in Wisconsin.
So nobody had told you why he left, and nobody had told you.
I didn't know the depths of what happened.
2 sides to every story.
3 sides to every story. Yeah. Yours, mine, and the truth.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you not having a dad growing up. Well, your grandpa was like your dad.
I had my grandpa. Yes.
Yeah.
But even though he was similar to a father figure, I knew that my dad was still out there and he wasn't with me. So of course that affects a child.
And you think
I think it's made me, most people wouldn't assume it, but I'm pretty clingy, to my girlfriend.
Okay.
But I think a lot of that probably stems from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's an abandonment thing.
That's 100.
And you still feel that way to this day? That clingy?
I'm still working through it.
Right. Do you ever went to therapy?
I still go to therapy.
You go to therapy. How many times will you go to therapy?
Twice a month.
Twice a month.
I think it's important for people to talk about what they're going through.
Therapy is very important. A lot of people look down on it.
Especially in the black community, right?
I was just about to say that in black community, that's probably the number one thing we can use to break a lot of our barriers.
Toxic masculinity is a problem.
And
real talk.
And also being able to get a conversation with someone that's solely between the two of you is protected. You can't change that. I grew up going to a speech therapist on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Right.
Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I was going to a conversational therapist because I had anger problems based off of the cruelty of kids.
Making fun of you.
Yeah. Which comes with talking, which comes with the way the parents were at that time as well. So I had I had a double-edged sword just coming at me at all times. That's why I took I took appearance as a key importance. I took grades as a key importance as well because if I could get to you before you got to me, I was gonna be all good. The only thing you could actually say was, okay, dog can't talk, but I can can outdress you. I can outrun. I can outsmart you. I got all the girls talking to me. I got all the candy in the classroom. I got ice cream. I got ice cream for you. I got ice cream for him. I got ice cream for her too.
Right.
And it kind of creates a process. And then when Luke was explaining that like clingy or that like attachment thing, it's because you're actually sitting there in the corner like waiting for someone to leave you, because that's what you're actually built on. And I felt that like when Christmas come and go, I get gifts and then 2 or 3 days they'll be gone. I'll be like, okay, I gotta be prepared for it. Or even like call and then ask for something, and then 2 weeks pass by and it ain't came. You're just built on those type of values. But then when your grandparents are so important to you, like grandparents are major. That's really why I feel today's era is going through a problem, because grandparents are too close in age to their kids. There aren't really grandparents that's like 60, 50, 40 years old raising their babies. Because I can recall my granny was born in 1945. My granddaddy was born in 1944. I was born in 1990. So that's a 40 age gap. That's a 45-year age gap. By the time they got me, they was 51, over the hill, ready to go. Yeah. And like, if I showed you a picture of her, you would say, "Wow, that looks like she could be your mom," because we actually kept our grandparents young, because they had to re-raise children again. And grandparents in today's era, they're just grandparents can be, as crazy as this sound, a kid can be 12, the mom can be 28, and the granny can be 45. That's scary.
Yeah, the gaps are different.
And they all going in the club at the same time.
Right.
It was interesting for me because as a kid, I was raised by my grandparents.
Right.
But check out this curveball. While I was a kid,
mm-hmm.
my grandma's mother came to live with us.
Right.
So for a solid 8 or 9 years of my life, I was living with my grandma, grandpa, and my great-grandma. My great-grandma was born in 1909.
Right.
I got a whole different perspective. You're talking to someone that had been through 2 world wars and a Great Depression.
Right.
It's a different perspective.
And I'm curious, Luke. Like, so I know your parents are like older or whatever like that. Your grandparents, right?
Yeah, my grandma's 84. My grandpa would be 90 if he was still alive.
And do you feel like they had any race issues at all themselves?
I've been educating my grandma on the issues. So my grandma was a housewife,
mm-hmm.
very naive. She didn't see a lot of problems because she chose not to.
Right.
So like, I've had to enlighten her on things. Like when I bring my girlfriend over and she goes from having her weave in to having braids.
Right.
How'd you do that? That's what my grandma asked.
Wow.
But that's kind of normal.
It is normal. It's normal from her world.
But
I remember I went to a store.
I had to let her know how that can be annoying to a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa is another story. Obviously, he grew up in a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandpa built hospitals when he was successful.
Mm-hmm.
He built churches in South Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a plaque on my grandma's wall that was presented to my grandpa from, you say it, Nazareth?
Yeah.
From a Nazareth church.
Mm-hmm.
All black church.
Right.
That he built.
Nazarene, yeah.
Nazarene.
Yeah.
Nazarene.
So, do you think your grandpa had a good relationship with blacks?
I think he did, but that's not to say that he was without flaw.
For that time, for that era.
For that time.
And then out of
the Luke.
And then out of respect for his grandfather, we gonna just let him rest. You feel me?
That's just the thing I'm trying to figure out, because I noticed, from what I noticed, TQ, was that sometimes, for instance, like you have white people, right? They may not themselves be racist, but they grew up in that kind of environment where somebody around them was racist. And like, it's kind of, when you're raised up in a home as a black person and your parents are Christian, but you're technically not, you still have those subconscious Christian beliefs, because that's what was put into you.
Everybody from Texas is racist, bro.
Just being honest, right? So, period. As a kid, there was a woman in my life that, she was a black woman. We called her Grandma Bird. And she practically was like a second grandma to me. But at the end of the day, she went back home to where she lived. She didn't stay with us.
Right.
So I think it's kind of a tricky question, just because I didn't grow up in their generation. So I'm not able to really speak from the perspective. But I think the majority of people from that generation do have some sort of racial bias.
I think it's a racial norm, because like, I'm from Miami. To me, everybody in Dallas is racist. To be honest with you,
they don't have a choice.
That's how I feel. And when I first got here, an older lady, like, I was in a grocery store. This lady seemed like this little blackish, and she wasn't being racist, but she was with her husband. They're walking like extremely slow, and she's like, "Oh, look at the cute colored kid." Wow. But to me, the ignorant side would have been to be mad. But being on the unignorant side, if we were in her time zone and she told a white man a black baby was cute, she would have got hung. So I think that shows her unracism.
I think you can tell when someone has hate in their heart.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference, you know?
Like, and
I think racism is a lot more subtle than people let on.
Yeah.
It's not always in your face.
Right.
It's a quiet.
And just moving forward.
9 times out of 10, if we have my girl and I are at dinner, if we have a white server, 9 times out of 10, they address me
first
versus her. It's a problem. She's a person too.
What do you feel like? That's because you're the man, but not necessarily because you're white?
A white woman sometimes won't even look at her.
Wow. It's 2019. That's still happening.
Of course it's still happening.
And you noticed that?
Yeah.
Often.
How could I not?
It's Perry's,
but it took me a while.
Making Sam's.
I mean, you got to think about it. Imagine a white guy pulling up in a Wraith, not even 30 yet,
with a black girl.
And
what are they thinking?
You're pulling up in a Wraith too. You're 50.
Right.
With kids, worked like a motherfucker, and probably don't even want to be with your wife.
And then how he like walk, and how he move, and how he just slow,
laid back,
his back lean back, man. He just walk as if there's like more to him. It's a swagger though. It's a swagger, and I can say that when we ask these questions, it's kind of like, where are we going to place ourselves in our business? Because to be honest, if like you go into a black club, if like you go into one set on a Friday, you're not going to see a lot of people on the chairs, standing up on the tables, popping bottles the way that you would see it on the Saturday, our days.
Right.
And it's all about the ambiance of what you create. So when like we create that culture around like being a certain type of way, or even I'm gonna go way left, or even this, white people been swiping, scamming, purchasing houses under LLCs for 500 years. We just started doing that within the past 10.
PCN.
Come on. We just started that. But then we take that and we get that in, rather than creating charities, nonprofits to go back in, and like, rather than doing that, we go at the club and we'll get these cost $28 here in the store, but in the club,
thanks for pointing that out for me.
They $400. You feel me? They
people thought I was balling, TQ.
You is balling.
300% markup.
300%
markup.
And then we're gonna pay that 10 times just to look good for some random girls we gonna talk to
that we want to walk in the park with.
Anyway.
I think it's so crazy because I feel like some of the stuff is
we
really,
just experienced that.
I know, but some of the stuff is really obvious. Like you have to look at the white person. You have to look at the white teen, the white frat boy. You don't see.
They don't wear those.
No, but you don't see white people trying to do white things intentionally. You see white people doing what they see black people doing.
Right.
So check this out. Example. I just did a project, and the project's done, so I can talk about it now. I did a project with Bumble, the dating app. I wrapped 3 G-Wagons for them. Wrapped them yellow, their color. Put decals on the side for a corporate activation. I gave them the cars. They drove around to college campuses.
Right.
The cars came back damaged, and I discovered they were damaged from social media, where I found a bunch of college white kids standing on top of the cars.
Right.
Who stands on top of cars? Rappers.
Frat boys.
No, but think about it. They're only doing it because of what they saw someone else do. You don't walk into a fucking frat party and hear Linkin Park. You hear Lil Baby or you hear Gunna.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are the ones who control the culture.
How did you handle that situation? Did Bumble was it easy for them?
I mean, they paid for it, but I was frustrated.
Were they pissed?
I was frustrated because when I saw it, I was like, these fucking wannabes.
We were just sitting there
why are y'all standing on top of the car?
But you want to know what's funny? Like, all right, this is the last comment I'm gonna make, but I'm gonna get off a race with my boy Luke because his business is not even wrapped around that at all.
But
You know what
I mean, I have to address it.
No, that's
but
cool.
most of
That's
the time, racial questions aren't set up for a white person to win them.
That's what I'm saying.
What is the thing, Luke? And this is the last thing I'm gonna ask you, Luke. Actually, matter of fact, all you guys, what are your goals going forward in business?
We all kind of do different things.
We'll start with you, Luke.
Just goals in business?
I mean, life, business, everything.
Man, I'm just striving to have a healthy relationship with my business, my lady, my family, and myself. You can have a bunch of money and be miserable. I learned that very quick. And that's not to say I have a bunch of money, but I remember how desperately I wanted certain cars. And I have them now. And I still can get sad in that car. And
everybody wants to know, Luke. So do you have a bunch of money?
People say, would you rather cry in the Camry or cry in the Wraith? It's still material, bro. Like, this shit doesn't make you happy. What was your question, though?
So everybody wants to know is, do you have a bunch of money, Luke?
No.
Not at all.
I wouldn't say I have a bunch of money. I've got friends that have way more money than I do.
Right. And what about you, Vinny? What are your goals?
I'm about to say.
No.
My goal is really kind of the same thing, just to live a healthy life. My ultimate thing is within myself, staying loyal within myself, staying true within myself. The success I'm not worried about.
The goal is to have balance.
Yeah, there it is right there. Because within myself, like, my dad built King of Diamonds in Miami, right? So I grew up around strip clubs and stuff, but I'm not like this rich kid. I've seen a lot, been through a lot, and things like that. But I think I've helped businesses make Forbes list from zero. You know what I mean? But my biggest thing for me is more so just loyalty, being around loyal people, because I think that's the only way to really get balance. If I can't be around, like, want to be rich and him correct me and me correct him, then, like, what is it for? Because it's easy to make money and have yes men around you. So I think my biggest thing is just loyalty, me being loyal to others and them being back to me and just creating a balance for my life. And that's it.
And what about you, TQ?
I would say for, like, me, the goal is to grab those corporate like practices and apply those to entrepreneurs, athletes and entertainers. I've always worked or like watched corporate like businesses and like branding, marketing, and advertising. So I've actually been able to learn that game and understand those like gaps where like SBs, which is like those like under 400 employee businesses can actually win. So like as far as like business go, that's the goal. Like that's the only goal I got, because I'm already like doing like tons of shit. So it's just about applying those corporate like entity practices into small businesses and just creating big brands off from like regular people, everyday people.
And that's your goal. Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
That's all the questions I have for you guys today, man. I appreciate you guys coming out, man.
Man, I didn't even expect to be on camera, so I apologize. I got the hood on the whole time.
No, man, you good. We gotta keep your secret, man. You know, you're brand manager, man. You know, people out to you and they out for you, man.
What's your goal with the radio station and the podcast?
With Raw Discourse, what's my goal?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I just want to have.
Course?
No. No, I think, man, my main goal with this platform, man, is to do exactly what we did here today. To have intelligent conversations about, you know, business, race. We talked about money. We talked about marketing. We talked about strategy. We talked about lessons learned, life obstacles you went through that maybe somebody else may be going through. They can listen to your story and hear, okay, if he got through it, I can go through it too and get through it. You know, because it could be another Luke out there that might be going through something similar that may see this. He may be a high school kid who just lost his parents. He's like, damn, all these goals, like, what can I do? And he's lost, and he may hear this and just like it may click for him, you know? So you just never know the outreach you might have on somebody, man. And that's what I want to do here, man, you know?
People just got to realize that, you know, problems don't always get solved overnight. You know, there was a 3-year period where I really didn't know what I was going to do. And then it just happened.
Just like that.
Yep. Found my path.
Just like that, y'all. Well, you heard it here first. Raw Discourse, man. We done for the day. We out of here, man.
Hey.
Thanks a lot, Luke.
Appreciate you.
Vinny, TQ for coming out, man. Thank y'all, man.
Sure.